Okay, here we go. Like I said, sanitized spoon. Start mixing in that syrup. Now, if you'll note, there's syrup stuck on the spoon. So keep stirring. There we go. No syrup left. You can tell how dark and gooey goodness this is going to have in it. Set the spoon aside. Turn the stove on up to the high heat setting, and we'll go from there. Waiting on the boil over. Now, this is a stage you want to be very careful. Make sure you do not leave your wort unattended as it starts to boil. As soon as it boils, you need to shut the heat off until the boil over subsides. This is something I think everybody who talks about brewing beer this way states implicitly. You don't want to mess up. When it starts to boil over, it's called a boil over because it will boil all over everything. At 205 degrees. Now, it's been suggested when it starts with its boil over, you want to shut off the heat and stir it. So I'm going to get my spoon ready. One final reading. We're at 211 degrees. Having never done this before, I'm going to assume that since it's boiling, my boil over has been averted from any disasters, crises, or messes. Yeah, I suppose I will see you back in about a half hour. I decided to add a little bit of the maltodextrin a bit early. Try to pull a little bit more of a caramel flavor out of it. This is the organic maltodextrin that I purchased from the store. And again, you're going to want to stir it to prevent scorching at the bottom of your pot. Alright, so here I am. I am 50 minutes into my boil. What you didn't see was me adding 1 3/4 pounds of maltodextrin. 1 pound of powdered maltodextrin, 3/4 pound of granulated maltodextrin. Two different sources. It's the only reason why it wasn't the same. I put my steeping bag back in with about a tablespoon of Irish moss and about 3.5 to maybe 4 cups of roughly ground vanilla nut coffee beans. Periodically stirred, just again, prevent scorching. I've got everything set the way I want it set. Look at how well my spoon is coated. It's going to be a dark beer. Anywho, like I said, I'm about 9 minutes, 12 seconds out from shutting off my boil. Got my W yeast nutrients diluted into some lukewarm water. Just add it right all into the boil 10 minutes prior. Again, I want to give a shout out to Williams Brewery, or Brewing, forgive me, Williams Brewing, San Leandro, California. I strongly recommend, if you're in the western half of the United States, order from them. $6.90 flat rate shipping. They will grind up any of the malt or any of the grains that you order the day they ship. I would assume if you're anywhere in California, it'll be next day shipping. Don't pay for it. It'll happen naturally. I can't imagine more than 2 or 3 days right through the center of the United States. Great company, very quick. Have had no reason to call the customer service, but I can assume that they'd be good people too. Where are we at now? 7 minutes until my boil's done. I'm going to have to get my ice bath ready. Got my pot holders, safety first always. I'm not adding any hops this round. My next batch I'll be putting in aroma hops and flavoring hops. If I get the inclination to, I may get some hops, make it very hoppy for bittering. Sure, Williams is taking care of that. But if they didn't, or if I feel inclined to just make it very hoppy, I'm going to get more. I'd probably do the pellet hops, just seems to be easier. Going to explore the option of getting some hop plants, growing my own hops. Natural's better. Organic, you know, can't argue with organic. Organic's good. That's it for now. Be back after the ice bath. I forgot one vital part. Taking my big pot off the stove, no heat right now. I'm going to put it in my sink, physically put it into my sink with ice and water around it. Before I add the ice, before I add the water into the sink, not the pot, just the sink, I'm going to put the lid on it. I don't want bacteria or germs getting into my wort. Even though right now it is boiling hot, I want to make sure nothing throws off this batch. So that's that. Alright, this is down to about 100 degrees. Now I'm going to pour it into my sanitized fermenter through a strainer, hopefully, just to make sure everything's strained out of it that I possibly can strain out of it. Unfortunately, my sink's just a little too small to fit the fermenter tank into the sink, so I'm going to have to pour it out of the sink. And just as I thought, huge freaking mess because I spilled. But anywho, that brings me up to, I don't know, about 12 liters of semi-warm wort. I'm going to end up adding a little bit of cold water, trying to get the temperature right about 75 degrees. Alright, pot number one of my the cold water going into my fermenter tank. Well, this one's filling up. Did I say mess? I didn't say mess. I didn't make a mess. I mean, as you can see, there's nothing on the ground, nothing on the covers, nothing on the counter. I didn't make a mess. Now the water I have here in my house is cleaner than any bottled water you can buy. That's why I'm not sanitizing it. I don't have the need for it. I've never had an issue with that. With that first pot, I'm right about 18¼ liters. I'd say that puts me around 3.5 gallons, give or take. I don't know. A lot of math's called. Well, alright, 22 liters. Let's give my little sticky thermometer a chance to register the proper temperature, see if I got to add cold water again or if I've got to add hot water. I'm adding cold water. My thermometer is reading hot. Guess I have no choice but to add a little ice water. Okay, so we're back. My wort is in my fermenting tank, right here. The temperature on it is right at the high end. I'm going to go ahead and pitch it right now because I got lots of stuff to do and I'm tired of waiting. When the directions tell you something like you got 3 gallons of boiling wort, put it in an ice bath till it's 80 degrees, then add cold water, they mean it. I started off with my wort at about 100 degrees, as I mentioned, before I started adding anything cold to it. Thusly, I've had to wait a couple of hours with my fermenting lid on, so nothing contaminant-wise could get into it. Also, I ended up right at about 25 liters. Still left plenty of room in here for fermenting. I'm hoping that this thing doesn't go crazy with blowover with the nutrients that I put in there for the yeast. What I have here is my little mixer, which has been sanitized. And I use this to aerate my wort until such a time as I can get a proper system. So with no further ado, I'm going to take the lid off and aerate my wort. Then pitch my yeast. Alright, lots of foam on the top of this. Of course, there's a fair amount of sugar, so there's going to be a fair amount of foam. With using such a high setting to aerate it with. My Safale US 05. Go ahead and sprinkle that on in there like so. Make sure you get it all out, couldn't hurt. Now with this on low, I'm just going to introduce the yeast all the way in. Like so. My wort is now beginning the process of fermentation. Go ahead and put the lid back on. I usually give it a good tight little twist here. Make sure it's really well tightened. Sanitized airlock. Just make sure there. There we go. Now as this ferments, I'll take a few seconds here and there video on the fermentation lock and we'll see what ends up happening. Thank you.